Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Reality Check Podcast. Tonight I'm joined going clockwise by going on day 27 out of a 30-day fast, Marcus, soon to be back on the table. And below him, Raul Mas, our most TV exposed contributor. And I'm Carlos. So tonight's topic is the Trump doctrine versus the midterms. And this topic came about because we have a situation where Trump has been working overtime overseas, and he's been doing a lot of things, and he's been modernizing this country. I mean, the man is like the guy in the fair juggling, spinning all the plates. It's incredible. It is just uncanny. The problem is that as good as that is, they're going to start throwing in his face, and the average Joe here is going to say, that's wonderful, Mr. President, but why am I still paying so and so for such and such? Why have tariffs caused my business to drop? I'm a farmer. Tonight, where was he? Iowa. Case in point. That is a concern. And he also knows Trump is not naive that the legacy media is not in any way going to assist him. And they're going to try to milk the shit out of this situation in Minneapolis, even though tonight is not about Minneapolis, but it's a distraction that they want to propagate. And I think we see already that today he pulled Bovino from there, who's really that's not his hat, that's not his wheelhouse, doing what he's been forced to do, and that's all calculated. And instead, he sent Homan in, and he's speaking directly with Mayor Frey or Fry or whatever you call him, and Walz. And I believe that he's doing that because tonight I heard this afternoon that the term reading the tea leaves. I mean, maybe he is, but that's a situation that he would allow to linger at his peril and
Yeah,
at the GOP's peril. Trump is to me right now balancing.
yeah,
I have this great legacy that I'm going to be very proud of. I did this for free. I didn't have to. That's all wonderful. But he's done in 3 years. But if he brings his party down with him, that's going to ruin the hell out of his legacy.
yeah.
I know that there's been topics. Marcus, you recently were getting into a topic about the Fourth American Empire. Would you
Right.
like to, which kind of dovetails into the stuff overseas? Would you like to share some of that out with us?
Yeah, sure. So the public perception is that there is a level of impatience about how Trump is handling things, especially in the domestic situation. But you got to realize, as a president, he has to have a strategic focus instead of a tactical focus. So, his concerns obviously is like national security, public safety, and domestic security, which it equates to the economy. So while people are thinking of checkers, he's actually playing chess. And what is atypical of his administration compared to others, he's taking a far-sighted approach. Like previous administrations, they're just reacting like one foot in front of the other shoe. So what we're seeing is like rebuilding the military, kicking out all the illegals, reducing that cost, using tariffs, revitalizing, modernizing the electric grid, being more active with the space force, using and trying to dominate the space field, uh, try to handle currency and debt, and securing mineral and trade rights. So we're looking at Greenland, we're looking at Venezuela, we're looking at Iran, and people are like, "Why? That's a foreign issue. We should focus here." So taking like the a step back and looking at the myopic, some people are looking at it as like there's four stages of an empire for the U.S. So in the first stage, it was manifest destiny, which is where land equals power. So the burgeoning of this country, we're grabbing up land going west and claiming it,
Correct.
try to block out all other Western powers.
I remember that from my history lessons. Yes.
Okay, so the second empire was after the Spanish American Revolution. Uh, we call it the open door, or incorporating the blue water navy, where ports we're focused on naval ports where access equals power. So we use power projection through our naval power, controlling the trade routes. After World War II, post 1945 onward, the focus is on the liberal international order, where it's globalization, it's NATO, Bretton Woods, using dollar as a petrocurrency. Everything was fine and dandy, but it became a law of diminishing returns. Globalization forced our domestic production out of the country. Our currency became more devalued. We lost our capability to produce things, especially like manufacturing, our shipbuilding capabilities. So when you look at previous empires like Spain, England, Rome, Germany, they fall because of economic reasons and because of relevancy. And what we're experiencing is that's what's happening to us. We're 36 trillion in debt. Other countries, and we mentioned this before about BRICS, they're challenging the US dollar. And when you really look at it, it's a reaction on how the US try to make the dollar more relevant than the petrocurrency, which is through SWIFT. And SWIFT is Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. That was used because the dollar was used as a reserve currency for international trade. But the US had used it against other countries, namely Russia, and threatened to use it against China and other countries. Like for China, trading with countries for like oil, because there are sanctions against them. So what it did is like some of these countries, like, all right, that leaves us vulnerable. And if you're a country, your focus is on not on an international order, but for your own self-interest. And they realize that, well, because we're part of the SWIFT system, we're vulnerable if, just say we do something in our interest but goes against U.S. interests. That's our Achilles heel. So more and more countries were going towards BRICS. Okay, so when you add everything together, our debt, our reserve currency, the currency is vulnerable. We're going a shift towards irrelevancy, and then we're going towards more of an economic crisis. So now we're looking at the fourth empire, where Trump, like I said, it's a myopic view. Like people were saying, like he's kind of all over the place, plugging fingers in every hole in every dam. But the purpose is to make itself relevant. And the relevancy is, it's not land equals power. It's not access equals power. It's not international order. It's knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. So with AI, U.S. owning, taking partial ownership and partnership with NVIDIA and Intel chips. Yeah. I'm speaking one part. What it does, it's cornering the market, and it's forcing other countries to go to the U.S. Mm-hmm. So it's not just chips; it's the data centers and the computer system process as well, like the programming, and they're all U.S. and what he's doing is, if you're going to buy into our system, you have to use U.S. dollars. And what it does is forcing a dependency on these countries. It's like for the U.S. with a federal system in the U.S. and a state system with highway funds. They're like the states look at it as free money, but then they impose a little thing like, you have to have seatbelt laws, You have to have miles per, minimum speed limit. Other states would say, no, well, then we're going to pull your money. So it creates a dependency system. So that's what it's doing to these other countries to force a dependency on to use the US dollar, vice using BRICS. And then using the tariff, it's pay to play. If you want to be into the US market, you're gonna have to pay the tax or the tariff.
Yeah.
So what it does is protecting our domestic markets and forcing these countries to go back into the U.S. And what it does is revitalizing and strengthening our supply chain system. And what COVID did was really highlight how vulnerable our supply system was. I don't know if you remember about, we wanted masks, we wanted this and this, and China cornered the pharmaceutical market and the mask. And you know what China said to the US? No, it's for us. So that was like a wake-up call. And then let me see, I'm trying to think of some other stuff. But like we're seeing that with the Panama Canal Zone, securing trade routes because, like I said, it's all about national security. China could plug up that port and instantly, I don't know, 60% of our ability to trade or move our naval fleet gets stopped. Why did it happen under the previous presidents? I don't know.
Carter.
Under Carter and whatnot,
Yeah.
or purchasing. China bought like the port access systems as well, and then you look at mineral rights that in some areas you could only get in Greenland. Then you're looking at oil. We have other avenues through Venezuela and Iran, and then having a strategic input. So, but the thing is, the U.S. population, we are notorious to being short-sighted and short-minded, and that's why it's unusual for the U.S. in terms of presidential administrations go. We are taking a far-sighted approach. So,
right.
And that's about it. So, if anybody wants to, chime in.
Raul, any views on the things? I've got a couple of things, but you go ahead. Anything that comes to your mind regarding some of the points or something else that you want to bring up?
So I think what you're alluding to, Marcus, is in fact very real. One of the problems that we've had in America for as long as I can remember is that there is a very short-sighted approach to everything, right? And Americans don't have the patience for things that take a long time to sort of work their way through and come to a conclusion. And we've seen that obviously in wars, right? I mean, we don't like long wars. We like short, intense, brutal wars. We like them like our football games, right? We like sudden death. We don't like things that go on for 3 or 4 additional quarters and overtime type of stuff, right? We in our capitalist economy, we're short-term focused as well. It's very hard for public companies to focus on long-term, strategies when once a quarter, they are judged by their, quarterly results, right? And how much money did you make for me lately, right? And so that's always been one of the big criticisms about going public for a company, is that suddenly you're subject to this incredible sort of scrutiny from regulators and from the public as well, that if you miss your targets and 2 or 3 quarters in a row, you're toast. Your stock gets hit, you get clobbered, and then you lose your job as a CEO. They got to bring in a new team, because it's all about keeping that gravy train going, even though perhaps the reason you missed your targets is because we needed to invest in some new factory or some new technology that took a little bit longer to bring online than what you expected. So it's all about managing expectations. And so I think Trump is in fact taking, and I don't know how this came about. It's actually kind of fascinating, right? Because what you're seeing right now is actually what usually people refer to as a grand strategy, right? I mean, not to be confused with the strategy itself. I mean, a grand strategy is what what Marcus is referring to. How is our empire going to evolve to the next level? And it's all about international relations and our colonies and our enemies and how we're going to react and how we're going to position ourselves and what can we take advantage of, what can we take, what do we need to do to survive, for another 100 years or a couple hundred years. And I think, I don't know how it happened, but somewhere in this administration, people have started thinking about that stuff. And that's where you see now this incredible emphasis on things like Greenland, things like data centers, things like nuclear energy, bring back nuclear energy. We're going to need a lot of power for those data centers.
Space.
Yeah, space, right. Access to rare earths, that kind of stuff. All that has now become a priority. And I think you're right, Marcus. I think, Trump is looking at a lot of things that, are not very pleasant. Okay. I mean, yes, the stock market's on a tear. Okay. But we still have $36 trillion worth of debt. Look at the price of gold, man. I mean, gold is basically doubled in a year. It's at $5,000 an ounce. It was $2,500 not that long ago. Okay. A year ago. Okay. It's doubled. Okay. What does that tell you when you have a doubling in the price of gold, right? And now I'm hearing people saying, well, gee, we ought to start taking a look at copper because we're going through copper like crazy. And if we bring all these data centers online, we're going to need more copper than ever because that's what you use to conduct electricity. And, nobody's paying attention to that. And that's likely to spike up as well, right?
Now, we don't make pennies anymore.
Yeah, and we don't make pennies anymore. Exactly.
Yeah, copper for decades anyway, the ones we did make.
So I think, we are in this sort of incredible transition. I think you're right that Trump is looking not even 5 or 10 years out. I think this guy's looking 20, 50. What's going to happen in the next century, and how can I make sure that the U.S. is still relevant, going into the later part of the 21st century and the beginning of the 22nd century, whatever, right? I mean, I think about these things all the time now because when you got grandkids now, I'm looking at these little babies and I'm thinking, man, these babies are going to be around, long after I'm gone, and they're probably going to see the beginning of the 22nd century, right? So you start thinking about, wow, I wonder what the world's going to look like when they're, my age, right? And I hope the U.S. is still around, and I hope we're still a major player. And I think Trump is doing everything that he possibly can to ensure the survival of this country. And look at that national security strategy, refocusing on the homeland, protecting America, protecting the Western Hemisphere. That's the whole, deal behind, the focus on Greenland, behind, securing our borders, getting rid of Maduro, getting rid of all these drug traffickers, resetting, making sure that things in our own backyard, don't come back to bite us. And in the process, sort of getting China, getting Russia, getting Hezbollah, getting Hamas out of this hemisphere, getting the drug traffickers out. I mean, I think that's a hugely positive push. Now, are voters seeing that? I don't know. I think, we can have these conversations here and talk about these things, but let's be realistic, man. I mean, 80% of the U.S. population doesn't really, if not more, don't really focus on these things, right? They're living paycheck to paycheck. They're living nice, normal, trying to live a nice, normal life, okay? Stress-free as much as possible. And many of them are concerned about where their next meal is going to come from, where the next paycheck's going to come from. They don't have time to sort of like speculate on, what the world's going to look like 50 or 100 years from now. And I think those, when they go into the voting booth, they're not thinking about Greenland. They're thinking about the green in their pocket, and the lack thereof tends to play a major role in how they pull that lever. That, and also what they're hearing in the news. And I think, quite frankly, what they've been hearing in the news, and I hate to admit it, but the enemies, what I consider to be our enemies, right? The extreme left that's out there has done a really, really good job in, turning the tables on Trump in Minnesota. I think that this has been, very carefully crafted organizations, and protests and stuff that have gone on. I think they're delighted that, some people have now died. I hate to say that, but I believe that they're happy.
They love martyrs for the cause.
Yeah, they now have martyrs for their cause. Okay, it's emboldened them even further. Okay, and I hate to admit it, but I think if Trump is going to take a pause here, I think that's the right thing to do. To sort of lower the temperature a bit. I mean, I hate to sort of give ground, but I mean, sometimes it's better to take a step back, and reevaluate things and shuffle things around a bit, because you sometimes have to give the other side a tactical win in order to reach your long-term objectives, and I think that's what's going on here.
I wanted to tag up on some of the stuff you just covered. That's where the versus part of tonight's title comes in. They are doing their utmost to prolong what's going on in Minneapolis. Trump looks weak when he backs down, but he kind of has to now, because they've scaled it up where he would have to use the Insurrection Act and go into with the military and just mop the shit up.
But I think Trump realizes that, right? I mean, I hope he's smart enough to realize that that's exactly what they wanted to do, because then they got the midterms won.
Which is why he's not going to do it. But right. At the same time, he also said that ICE will continue its operations. See, we sometimes look at this. I look at the big picture. We say, well, fuck the Middle East, let them kill each other. I don't give a shit. Let them skin each other alive. I don't care. We got to worry about us. Well, now that's the Middle East, but the Middle East is here. And in the case of Minneapolis, it literally is part of Africa. But there, one could easily say, let the blue cities, and I've often felt that sentiment, let New York implode, let them reap Mamdani, let Minneapolis reap what they sowed. And they will, and there's going to, the people are leaving those states. I just hope the hell they don't come down here to Florida. I don't think they will from Minnesota, at least not in big numbers. I mean, my next door neighbors are from Minnesota, but that guy's super conservative. He had to leave his office the night of the Georgia riots. I had to draw a pistol 5 times to get out of the city. That gives you, that was in 2020. But anyway, that is a serious issue. They're tying him up. And yes, the average American person, this is a very ethnocentric country. And it's also a very impatient, instant gratification. I want it, damn it, and I want it now. And that is a problem, because when I went, for example, to LA, I got out there to start at USC in '82. What was the significance of that? Reagan had been in office about a year. Okay, he'd been there about a year, and things were slowly beginning to show a glimmer of improvement. But back then, it was a very patient country. We didn't have an internet. We didn't have any of that stuff. We didn't have 24/7 media cycle. And that is a state that Reagan won twice. California, imagine that today. It's inconceivable. But the population now does not have that kind of patience. They're going to just say, what's that doing for me? And Minneapolis, yes, you can let them burn. Yes, you can let them do whatever they want to do, and let that be on Walz. It's interesting that Walz has gotten a bit of a respite. I don't hear him saying he's going to run. I don't see him changing his mind. That investigation must proceed. I'm talking about the fraud. They cannot back down on the fraud. You want to leave the dishwashers there and the guys that park cars alone? Fine, but getting the worst of the worst. I don't know what came out today. It's too soon, but you guys know that he met today with the mayor and the governor. What came out of that, we don't know. But I don't believe Walz for a second. I don't believe a goddamn thing he says, that he's going to, turn over those conditions that we said, right? We're pulling Bovino out. You guys give us the illegal alien criminals, not dishwashers, not car parkers that you have in the jails. If Walz does that, even if he was smart, which he's not. He's a moron. But if he did do that, his base would turn on him with a fury. He'd be the next martyr, even though he's going to go. And the same thing with the mayor, with Fry. So that's an interesting, get the popcorn, because that's going to be interesting what happens in the next few days. Part of me says let him implode, let him do that, but maintain the ice tactics, getting the worst of the worst, and as well, if not sending the National Guard, but as most of all, the investigations into the fraud must keep going. They must not back down on that, because that's their Achilles heel. And all these distractions, you are correct, Raul. I agree that if they back it off a bit and de-escalate and take some off the front pages, then more attention, because those things were created for one sole purpose. You know what that is: to distract attention from the massive corruption. Walz has to know there's some deep shit on him, because if not, he wouldn't have so early said that he's not running again for reelection. Marcus, would you like to follow up on any of that, or chime in on something?
I mean, I took a little more aggressive approach, but I think it's all contingent about like what the polling says, especially among independent voters, because if we're almost split, it's independents that kind of maybe tip the scale on these purple states, or maybe purple counties. But my take is sometimes you do have to use the heavy hand of government. Look at in case of desegregation in Alabama, like in Birmingham, they force change. Not popular, but it was necessary. Then you look at the optics. Might not be good, but it's necessary. However, if you take a composite view of what all the actions are being done, they're doing a lot, because they talked about, we're investigating fraud. We're also investigating about these paid protesters. We're looking at the conversations and their funding source. So kind of tying into earlier, if you want to really defeat a foe, you a lot of times you just look at the economics. If you take out their funding mechanism, you're going to see a lot of dried up, but also enforce the law. And here's the thing: you see time and time of videos where people does not show any fear of law enforcement. They talk back, they get argumentative, they feel entitled. In the past, people like, 10 o'clock, 4 o'clock, yes sir, no sir, here's my ID.
Yeah.
But with a simple stop, there, maybe it's a George Floyd incident, but I can't breathe, but there is a level of entitlement. There's no fear. Then you get like Kamala and even Hollywood shows like, well, we'll pay for their legal costs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or GoFundMe, they'll raise a ton on GoFundMe. But see, that's the thing. It's a precarious situation, because they're emboldened. They're doing whatever the fuck they want, and then the only way to counter that is if you get out of hand, I got to punch you in the mouth. But then when they punch him in the mouth, then you have the problems of the other day. And that guy Preddy was armed with 2 mags. Nobody goes to a protest. I went to many here. Yeah, and I never took a firearm. And I was a concealed carrier for decades before that, especially in Miami. But again, that it's messaging, and the GOP has been pathetic on messaging, absolutely. And that's what I fear can cost them in 20.
Look, it's difficult. It's difficult because the groups that are funding this are extremely well organized. They've been allowed to flourish for decades. Okay, I think it's going to be a Herculean task to put an end to them. Okay, I think that's what needs to happen. I mean, there needs to be a stop to all this financing of what is in essence a simmering insurrection, for lack of a better description. Right? That's exactly what these people want to do. They want to tear down America, and they raise a ton of money. I mean, I've heard that they've raised over $50 million in California for a lot of these groups that are funding these protests in Minnesota. That's a hell of a lot of money, man. I mean, and these are people that are paid to protest. And yes, they do want martyrs, right? And unfortunately, people, for whatever reason, they hate the man, they hate Trump, they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. They want to go out there and beat their chests, and they end up doing really, really stupid things, man. I mean, I hate to see anybody killed. I hate to see anybody, die, whether it's that woman, trying to figure out how to do a 3-point, turn without, running over a cop, or this guy now.
She wanted to hit the cop.
Yeah. I mean, this guy now, I mean, look, it's interesting because, you alluded to something that's happening. They're trying to sort of now drive a wedge between right-wing gun owners and Trump by saying, "Whoa, this guy was a lawful gun owner."
Yeah, suddenly they want the Second Amendment, right? The people that want to go away with it.
I don't know. The lawful gun owners that I'm around, okay, they know better than to, try and interfere with police operations, especially if you're carrying a firearm, okay? And if you do get into the confrontation, you want to de-escalate because, you don't want to be resisting arrest, if you're armed, because that's not going to end well for you the minute they find out that you've got a gun on you, okay? You want to cooperate, 100%. I think most people understand that, there's a responsibility that goes with carrying a firearm, and they don't, I never in a million years would it occur to me to, lock and load and go to, see the local riot going on between law enforcement and, my fellow citizens and stuff. Why would I want to do that? I mean, that's
and get in the middle. He got in the middle.
It's kind of like putting yourself in danger, and it's reckless if you have a family. I mean, why? What's the purpose there, right? And by the way, I don't know if you saw the latest news story, but apparently that wasn't this guy's first run-in with federal law enforcement. Apparently, CNN is reporting, CNN, not exactly a radical right-wing news organization, is reporting that this guy had a broken rib from a previous encounter with federal law enforcement officers.
Just
right?
a week ago.
So you got a busted rib, okay? Your first time around, and now you're coming back for more, and you're loaded for bear. And look, you can, and I've seen the video 1,001 times, man. I mean, these guys, yes, they're dogpiling on him. Apparently, they knew he had a gun on him. Things got out of control. I think, it was a mistake. I think, people got stressed out. They had pulled the gun away from him, and bad things happened. Marcus, I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No, it's all right. I think a good contributing factor that could alleviate almost 100% is to have state and local participation. If that was the case, then a lot of these problems wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
You look at Florida,
with
DeSantis. You look at Texas with Abbott.
Tennessee.
There's no issues, but the thing is, and it goes tied to like how to make countries comply through Trump. Everything's economics.
Mm-hmm.
If you cut the funding source of a state or local government, or they're gonna make some hard choices.
Yeah.
Either play ball or not. And I think that was one of the main reasons why Trump went to see Walz and that mayor. Is like, hey, if you think you have a hard time making payroll now, you ain't seen nothing.
Yeah.
Let the police do their job, because there's a difference on how they could arrest and what type of charges they could do on a federal level, on a state level, and a local level. Something, and I have a friend who's a U.S. Forest Service, and there are plenty of times where like Florida state troopers and even county sheriffs, they don't mind working with the Forest Service. And he calls them bottom feeders, because what would be like a lower charge would be a higher charge for county or state. They get the added benefit of arrest, so they could do that. But the thing is, there's benefits where they could have that synergy applying more arrests. And I think there was an outcry on the left where Walz was starting to play ball.
So, Marcus, let me ask you something regarding law enforcement, because clearly law enforcement has stood down because they've been ordered to do so. That Chief O'Hara makes me sick. It reminds me of Batman, Chief O'Hara. This guy pales in comparison. From Minneapolis. Do you think that that a greater part, the major body of the Minneapolis PD would like to cooperate with ICE, or are they as fucked up as their bosses that they also enjoy not cooperating with ICE?
In part, yes, and in part, they have financial responsibilities for the paycheck.
No, I mean in their heart. No, I get that part. If you get fired, if you take on the mayor, you know, then you're screwed. I mean, in the series Blue Bloods, when he would threaten the mayor, Frank Reagan, he'd say, you know what, fire me and I'll run against you. I got better approval numbers than you. And the mayor would always back down, that he wouldn't fire the commish. But that's TV, okay? And maybe in real cases that happens. Not in Minneapolis, it ain't going to happen. But anyway, I'm just saying, do you think that the sentiment, yes, they have to guard their families, their pensions, their futures. I get that. They have children, but they have loans, probably. They had debts. They have a mortgage. But I just wondered, as the average cop, I remember the NYPD turned their back on de Blasio, literally turned their back. They asked Kathy Hochul to get the fuck out of his service, remember, for an officer killed in the line of duty.
I remember that.
They did not let her in. I remember that video. It was beautiful. They just told her, just get out of here. You are not welcome here, Governor. Do you think that the police in Minneapolis, that the average officer would like if they could to work with ICE, or are they as deluded and as TDS as the mayor and the local politicians? I wonder sometimes.
Mixed bag.
But it depends. Some may be, but some may be equally deluded.
Yeah. You remember about a year ago when there was that I don't know what protest it was, where all these like national protests that were going to take place to shut down cities, and I don't even remember, man. It was one of these, national, next Saturday where we're going to shut America down type of stuff.
Like this Friday, they say.
Yeah, and we had some of those protests down here in Miami, in downtown Miami, and I remember, Miami-Dade County Police Department actually has a pretty darn good, riot force. Their field force that they call out for these situations, man. And these guys, what they tried to disrupt downtown Miami, and burn some cars and stuff, and that shit ended really quick, man. I mean, that stuff just did not go on. And I think it makes a huge difference when you have local law enforcement involved in protecting, the cities, as opposed to having federal or the National Guard, because, that just, for whatever reason, it just, ratchets things up. And I think local law enforcement, by and large, usually has the support of the local mayors and the people here in the community. So, I think they're much more effective than what they're trying to do right now. And again, I get back to what I think Trump is doing the right thing, is sort of taking his foot off the gas pedal. Okay. Because, like I said, I mean, there's people out there are not really appreciative of what Trump is doing to make sure America survives into the 22nd century. They're seeing, what they're watching on CNN and MSN Now, or whatever it is it's called these days.
PMSNBC.
Yeah.
That's what Rush used to call it.
They're seeing that. They're saying, oh, there he goes again. Trump, he's a friggin' idiot, and, blah, blah, blah. And it's just amazing, man. And all of a sudden, it's like all these people in social media are suddenly like, experts on the use of deadly force, and, experts on police tactics and shit. And I'm like,
firearms.
Yeah.
And firearm laws.
What the video, it's crystal clear. This was some guy who's, usually a pretty bright guy, financial economist guy that I butt heads with on LinkedIn every once in a while. And I got a lot of respect for him. He's a smart guy, but this guy comes out and says, no, this is cold-blooded murder and execution. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Really? I mean, Did I like what I saw? No, I didn't. Was the cop in the wrong, or some mistake was made? Probably. Okay. But you know what? I don't think that these cops wake up in the morning wanting to go out and shoot anybody, right? In fact, I think that's what they're trying to avoid, because they know that oftentimes that can be a career-ending move for them, right?
Ask Derek Chauvin.
Yeah, and I think people also fail to realize, man, how stressful those situations are. I mean, you're making split-second decisions, and you don't have all the information, and shit happens, man. Bad stuff happens. But again, why put yourself in that situation? If you're seeing, it's one thing to go to, protests. Apparently had that protest a couple days ago where like 50,000 people showed up in below zero temperatures and protested in the center of Minneapolis. Great. Do that, that you're absolutely entitled to do that, man. But if cops are looking for bad guys and you are interfering in those operations, okay, and you're following them around and you're hurling insults at them and you're filming them and you're causing trouble for them, that's not a good thing to be doing. It can backfire against you. It's backfired twice now with Renee Good, and now this guy Alex, whatever his name is, Pernetti, whatever.
Right.
But I think Trump is right to sort of back off a bit, let them take a win, beat their chest. Oh my God, we beat the man, and all this stuff, and keep doing it. And I think, Marcus, what you alluded to, I think in those conversations behind closed doors, maybe Mr. Homan did deliver a message from Donald Trump saying, you think life is tough for you now, wait until you see how much more federal aid I'm going to cut off for Minnesota and the great state of Minneapolis and the great state of Minnesota.
Trump delivered a message first by phone to the mayor and the governor, then Homan followed up. Now you are correct about when things work properly, the police cooperate, and the best support that you want to be benefiting from is your local police. You know them, you're familiar, but the local police there are not part of the solution. They are part of the problem, whether it's because they're being forced or because just previously we said some of them maybe genuinely in their heart of hearts feel that way, and they want a lot of. I wonder how many cops have quit the force, because I know a lot of people have left the NYPD. The NYPD is down in officers, and I know for a fact I've got people in my community here. One of them, his son is just counting the weeks or the months to get his pension and get the fuck out of there and come work in Florida. He can't wait.
I think there are like less than 70% of manning levels from Minneapolis. But just to tie it on in a general sense, there's a difference between using hard power and soft power. You have to find a good match, but in between that, it's the level of coercion, application of coercion, and as I alluded to about the Fourth Empire, when you rely on information technology and using economic means, you could technically win a war without firing a shot. I mean, if Ukraine, they have a staying power because the international community is supporting them financially. Iran, Venezuela is toppling because of economic reasons.
Right.
When you look at Minneapolis, where they had an $18 billion surplus, now they lost it all because of all the fraud. And now you're looking at Trump saying, hey, play ball or it's going to get worse. You're not going to make payroll. Yeah. But to tie it into how the midterms are, I think what James Carville said about it's all about economics, stupid. When I think Walz took a big hit about the fraud. People are pissed at Walz. They're pissed at the mayor, and then how it's segueing to California, Maine, some of the blue states. They're all taking a hit financially.
Yeah. But look at them now. They're heroes. All of a sudden, they went from being schmucks, right? Oh my God! Look at all this friggin' fraud that happened on Walz's watch, right? Now these guys are now at the forefront of defending Minnesota, right, from from the enemy that has descended onto our shores. It's just there's a real political element to this, right? I mean, these guys.
Well, that's the paid aspect of it. That's the $50 million you're talking about.
Right.
But,
They're
when you
deliriously happy that the focus is no longer on the quality Leering Center, and now it's on these two martyrs that they've managed to produce quite quickly in the space of a couple of weeks, right?
That'll fizzle, and Trump is putting the focus back on the corruption and the fraud.
As Carlos said, fraud is the key to undermine the Democratic strongholds, and when it comes down to
power,
when it comes down to the elections, people are going to get rightly pissed. Like California, that's going to undermine Newsom or the Democrats. Like, they mismanaged the Palisades. Where the house is being built. They look at the high-speed rail to nowhere. We're going on 2 decades and nothing's really been built. The homeless industrial complex.
Well, look at Florida. We have a hurricane here that blows shit away before the hurricane even makes landfall. DeSantis has tens of thousands of line workers brought in from adjacent states, standing by, ready to go. As soon as the hurricane passes the danger zone, they're immediately out.
Yeah.
That's the difference between how a red state is run and how a blue state is run. Earlier, Raul, you made a point that is probably sadly true, but it's fucking infuriating. And I'm referring to the Herculean task that you alluded to. We had a Doge that in months was uncovering just unbelievable amounts of shit with very finite, fine-tooth comb detail. Why can we not utilize similar tactics and people in the computer and the IT fields with such skills that we can get to the bottom of this and take it down? There's got to be a way to do it.
Look, I don't know why it's taking so long. I mean, one of my biggest frustrations with this administration is, we know how many things were done incorrectly during the Biden years, all these scandals, all these things that are continuing to come out.
Criminally, not just
and
incorrect.
I just keep asking myself, how come nobody's gone to jail? What's going on here? What's happening? I'm not happy with Pam Bondi. I'm not happy with the Justice Department.
I want Harvey Dillon to be in charge because she's a person of action.
Yeah, I think you're right. I would love to see her, man. I mean, I think she
was the one who's firing people.
Yeah,
that's what
my opinion. I don't know what's wrong with Bondi, man. I'm not happy with her. I think that Americans wanted some heads on a spike, to put it bluntly, right? And there are no heads on the spike, and people are saying, what the fuck is she doing, right? I mean, get your shit together, man. I mean, we want heads on a spike, period.
This may be misogynistic and indelicate, but you know what Pam Cakes is turning out to be? She's a fluffer.
No, come on, man. Don't get in that. Don't get in that.
You get my point. You get my.
That's a little bit too. No, that's.
Well, my point is, she gets up there, she talks a lot, she gets everybody excited. She says, "I've got the documents. I've got the Epstein files."
Yeah, well, look, yeah, okay, man. In that respect, yeah, okay, maybe she's.
It's an analogy, bro. It's an analogy.
But it's a rough analogy, brother.
It is. Well, that's my job. To throw
let me get us out of the gutter here for a second, and just back into something that we've been talking about, which is the fact that Trump is possibly going to take a pause. And there's I got an email this morning from a retired Coast Guard officer that I've known for a long period of time. He retired as a captain in the Coast Guard, absolute gem of an individual, a real patriot. And so, he sent out this very thoughtful letter this morning talking about how, he was concerned that Trump was going to lose the midterm elections because of what's going on in Minnesota. And he made reference to a great quote that I want to share with you guys. Where he's talking about that, toning down the rhetoric is warranted, and he wrote this. He says, "The Department of Homeland Security needs to hearken back to the words of the founding father of the Coast Guard, Alexander Hamilton, when he addressed the new Revenue Marine Service leadership, and he said, They will always keep in mind that their countrymen are free men, and as such are impatient of everything that bears the least mark of domineering spirit. Imagine that. Alexander Hamilton telling the revenue cutters, okay, hey, be careful, okay? Don't go overboard, because, Americans are free people and they don't like to see anybody trying to dominate them, right? And you see this dog pile of a guy, covered by cops, being shoved, pushed to the ground, et cetera, et cetera. Americans, they chomp at the bit when they see that, right? Now, again, it doesn't mean that, and I think people have this, this wedge that the liberals are trying to, like I said, to get back to it, trying to drive between guns. No, wait a second, we don't go looking for conflict. Somebody carrying a firearm, it's for defensive purposes. It's not to go out there and get into a scuffle with cops and shoot up cops, right? But it's a vulnerability that Trump has right now, and I'm glad he's addressing it, and I'm glad he's turning down the temperature. Let's put it that way.
You just reminded me of what W said way back in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. The problem is that they can be right anytime.
Yeah.
Any percentage, 1%. We have to be right 100% of the time, and that is fucked up, but that is reality.
Yeah, it is.
Those people are under a microscope. The slightest little thing.
It is. These guys are very organized, and they can throw bricks and stones, and look at the damage that they did. Remember when they were lobbing those
hotels,
stones down on the cars in LA and stuff. I mean,
vandalizing hotels.
Yeah, this is like really dangerous, life-threatening stuff, and they can get away with it, okay? But if the president, if one cop makes a mistake or two, a couple of cops, go kill one person, then another in such a short period of time, man, that really, puts gets Americans in a sour mood. They're like, wait a second, well, what's going on here, right? I mean, I wasn't paying much attention to it, but now, and then you have this media out there that is just playing the video over and over and over again. I was watching one right before coming on the air, and this guy was analyzing the situation, and then at the end, when the other cops had drawn their weapons and were shooting, they're saying, the guy who supposedly is like this Homeland Security expert saying, doesn't that look like a firing squad to you? I mean, come on, man, really. Such incendiary language, right? These guys are, I don't know. I mean, I just, you see that, and it just, I don't know.
But you said piling on. When several officers have a man belly up, his ass and his back on the ground, unless they can show, and again, normally the police within 1 or 2 days immediately pull out body cam. Tonight's Tuesday night. It's been 3-4 days now.
Yeah, they had body cameras. So all that stuff.
I know they do. So why is it not coming out? That worries me, because if that guy was,
they're going to have lawyers look at it before it gets submitted.
Right, but if they can show body cam that he was drawing his weapon, you can be down, and if you're drawing your weapon, you're fair game.
No,
game over.
Listen, from what I've seen, apparently, and again, there was apparently one of the cops did in fact take the weapon away from him. Okay, and it's shown in the video. He actually had the pistol. He was walking away, right? And so the shot that was fired was after that police officer had disarmed him, right?
With a mask. Yeah, he had a blur. That guy's fucked. If that's the case, that guy is fucked. He's going to be a sacrificial.
And there was another guy who had already drawn a weapon. The other one pulled it away. And part of the speculation is, did that cop, when he pulled the weapon away, did he tell the cops that, I've secured the gun? I mean, did he say that as he, all of those video and audio has to come back, right? And again, I wasn't there. But my frustration with this process is, and I don't think that cops are perfect or saints by any stretch of the imagination. But all of a sudden, you got all these people that now they're suddenly forensic experts, and they know all about guns, and the gun went off automatically. No, whatever. No, I mean, just let it wait for a while, man. I learned a long time ago, man, this phrase that I use all the time. If you don't know, if you're not an expert in something, you don't have something that you can really sort of point to in your background and say, yeah, I know a little bit about this, right? So, I think I consider myself a subject matter expert on firearms because I've been around them for over half a century. I got my first gun when I was like 15 years old. I've written technical articles on firearms and historical articles, and I got, I've had guns and machine guns and all sorts of weapons, and I've taken armorers courses and all. I know a lot about guns, okay, but I don't know a damn thing about police tactics, use of force. I shot competitively rifles out to 1,000 yards, but that doesn't make me a sniper because I'm shooting at a static target, right? I mean, but so I stay in my lane. If we're talking about this, I can talk about it, okay? But we're talking about something completely different. Hey, man, I'm just like anybody else. I got an opinion. I'm happy to share it with you, but I like to wait until, the smoke is cleared a bit, no pun intended, and the facts have started to filter out. And then things come out like this interesting piece of trivia. This guy apparently, he had a rib broken a couple days ago because, he got in an altercation with the cops before. All right. That goes to his state of mind, right? I mean, if you by some cops, you got a broken rib, what the hell are you doing going back out there again? And this time, armed? Give me a fucking break, man. This guy was looking for trouble,
He quit his job.
Trouble found him, okay?
His family was trying to dissuade him. His own family was trying to dissuade. Marcus, I know you wanted to weigh in.
Just make a point. Coming from the military side, I got to make 2 points. One is people forget about the human factor of things. And when you're in a high-stress environment, people tend to get a thing called tunnel vision.
Yeah,
the only way to expand your tunnel vision is to have experience. So instead, like a new guy, they just see what's in front of them. The more experience you have, then you have more situational awareness.
Yeah.
So what I see is that for police and including the military, if a police officer says the word gun, everyone draws their weapon out and starts shooting.
Yeah.
And then all it takes is one shot. Then it's called a sympathetic response, right, where it forces everyone to shoot. And that's what I equate about the human factor.
Yeah.
And in my mind, the reason why the guy grabbed the gun didn't say gun at all and was walking away, because if he said, I have the gun.
Yeah, it can be misinterpreted. Absolutely. I think you're right.
People who have tunnel vision don't hear the word I have because they have tunnel vision. They would just hear the word gun.
I think that makes perfect sense, right? I mean, I think I would have done the same thing in that situation. So chaotic. If I had mentioned the word gun, these guys are going to, start blazing away. Something happened there, man, and it could just be as tragic as the guy, unintentionally fired the handgun. I mean, it's, shit happens, man. I mean,
I think he panicked, and I think he's going to be up shit creek. And I think Trump can pardon him because he's going to get convicted. If he shot an unarmed man, he's going to get convicted because the left is not going to take the, let it settle view or the fact that the police are under incredible duress.
Yeah, look, that guy, that poor guy, whoever fired that first shot, he's, if he's a human being, or I have no reason to suspect he's not a decent human being, he's probably, living a nightmare right now, wishing that he could turn the clock back, and he can't. Right.
Right.
Well, and Marcus, what you're referring to, I don't want to go into it, man, but a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was in a situation where I found that what you just described, right? Everything, it was the weirdest thing. Everything around you goes completely silent. You are focused like a laser beam on something in front of you. And man, I came very close to making a decision. I probably would have regretted afterwards, but and I was shaking like a leaf afterwards, man. I was shaking like a leaf because it just very uncomfortable. And quite frankly, as a result of that, I've got a concealed weapons license. I rarely ever carry a firearm unless I'm going into a particular. I mean, I live in Coral Gables, man. I mean, we got, we don't really have crime here, right? So I don't think that much about it, right? Nowadays, I'm getting more concerned and probably carrying more often. But I just you realize, I mean, I take that very seriously, man. Taking a life is just like antithetic to me. I mean,
I had a similar experience as you with the tunnel vision and the panicky fight or flight on the platform of the Metro Mover many years ago in downtown by James All Night Center, which is not a good neighborhood at 10:30 p.m. even on a weekend.
That's
But
not
thank
something
God nothing happened. Thank God nothing happened.
I experienced that once, and I don't ever want to find myself in that situation again.
Nobody wants to find themselves like that. Worst case, if this poor guy does get convicted, right after the midterms, Trump can pardon him. Just saying, very quietly.
Yeah.
But just going about like the tunnel vision level of experience. I don't know if you guys saw the movie Warfare. I know we're drifting off target.
Yeah. I saw it. Yeah.
So you see like a SEAL platoon, and it was a mixed bag of seasoned, very experienced operators, and they're like maybe third or fourth deployment, and you get like newer first time deployment, and then when they had encountered the ambush, extended combat, and trauma of their teammates, you see everyone act differently. The new guy, they're like frozen, sensory overload.
Yeah. Oh.
Then you see, a guy with a saw, dodging, weaving on the roof, just boom, 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 boom. But you see, it's experience and training does have a factor. You could be brand new, but if you don't have the experience to overcome it, and we're looking at Border Patrol agents, many of them don't have the military experience. They have experience, maybe not much experience on the range. I mean, they would arrest people, but nothing that's almost life threatening. So, like I said, just from my observation, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but just based on my experience, I look at it's a tunnel vision issue. Then you get an AED, then you get a sympathetic firing.
Yeah.
AED, for those who are not familiar with our viewers, means an accidental discharge.
Yeah.
That's what an AED is.
By the way, I never refer to them as accidental discharges. I think I always call them a negligent discharges, because I still have difficulty believing that guns go off by themselves, and accidental discharge sometimes connotes that. Although what's happening with that SIG 320 pistol that, has been in the news a lot lately, and that apparently was the firearm that was pulled off this guy. It was a SIG 320. A lot of police departments have now stopped even though that's U.S. military issue in the form of the M17 and the M18. That's a new service weapon for the U.S. Armed Forces, is the SIG 320. But a lot of police forces are now moving away from them because they got cops that claim they've shot themselves in the leg when they've, simply reholstered the gun or something. And I've been following that pretty closely. I've been reading up a lot on it. I've seen one guy who went through a very convoluted process in which one of the safety mechanisms was defeated under, specific set of circumstances. But man, I just have a hard time thinking that, a big company like SIG, rifle, a weapon that's been in production for so long. But apparently they have made slight engineering modifications to the design over the years. And some people are saying, well, there's a reason why they made those engineering modifications to the design, subtle but important changes that supposedly, eliminate that possibility. I don't know, but
you mean a hair trigger? I wanted to bring this back to the.
It's not really a hair trigger. It's something that
a de facto hair trigger.
It deactivates the safety mechanism inside the pistol, the module itself, or the fire control system of the weapon.
Well, that's very dangerous, because then you really would be getting an AD.
Yeah.
Because then that officer who shot himself in the leg, no officer, like you said, wakes up saying, I want to kill someone today, nor do they say, hey, I want to shoot myself in the leg today, maybe right after lunch.
So we had a chief of police here in Coral Gables, Don't want to mention his name, but this is, very well publicized about maybe 20 years ago now. And this guy, like the rest of the police force, they use Glock pistols. And the first time this guy had a negligent discharge was he was at the Biltmore Hotel in the gym, and he took out his Glock and he hung it by the trigger guard in a hook inside the locker.
That's a stupid discharge.
Come on. I mean, how fucking stupid can you be, man? Right? So sure enough, the gun spins around, boom, goes off. Okay. Holy shit, the city manager was going to fire him, but I guess took pity on him and kept him on as police chief. A couple of months after that, true story here, man, he goes to use the restroom in the police station, drops his drawers, okay? Had, I guess, the Glock pistol in his holster or something. I don't know, drops his drawers or maybe took the pistol out. I don't know what the hell happened. But he goes to, he wipes his ass, he goes to put his pants back on, and the friggin' Glock goes off again and shoots the lip off the rim of the toilet bowl. Okay.
He didn't shoot his dick off, at least.
Yeah. And didn't injure himself. Don't ask me how that happened, but that was it. The guy got fired immediately after that. And I'll never forget, because I was in the police station like the next day. And it was funny as shit, man. The cops have a really cruel sense of humor. These guys had gone out to Home Depot and they had bought a toilet seat, and they had put roses on it and stuff, right? And they had propped it up outside the men's room, favorite toilet, rest in peace type of stuff, It was hilarious, man. And I just thought, wow, man, these guys really, this is funny as shit, man. I had to laugh, man. I mean, just seeing that their chief of police was out of a job. Not long after that, he got another job at another police agency not far from here. So
where he was issued a water pistol.
I don't know, man, but that was just who in their right mind would hang up any firearm, through the trigger guard on a hook in a locker?
What FBI agent would do a flip on a dance floor while having some drinks? Remember that guy? Pistol dropped and shot a guy in the thigh. You guys maybe remember that incident.
A lot of stuff that happens,
Exactly.
So, going back to the midterms,
yeah,
I think, like I said, it's right versus left. And I mean, we're almost evenly split in terms of a population, but in terms of about actual seats, I think there may be maybe 30 seats in contention, maybe, but that could also get offset with the redistricting with some of the red states, maybe expanding the majority, but it's and I look at the left, the progressives, they don't have a sustainable narrative for the people. They have a poor record under the Biden. Trump's administration is trying to fix it. What we're dealing with, short-term memory. But I think we're going to be in a positive. I think he's going to hold and don't have to worry about.
Yeah, but the problem. What I think the problem, Marcus, is that in midterms, a lot of people don't show out to vote, right? I mean, if the president's not on the ballot, a lot of people simply will not show up to vote, right? And Democrats are angry, right? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that they want to sort of, gin up their base. They want Democrats to be angry because that's going to motivate the Dems to go out and vote on election day. Okay.
We saw it last November. New Jersey, right. New York.
And if
Republicans, they're blue states.
and if Republicans, stay away from the polls because, hey, I'm happy, I don't really see anything wrong going on, or perhaps they're saying, you know what, I'm not that excited about voting Republican this time around because there's some things that are going on in this country that I'm not yet, haven't wrapped my head around yet. That's going to hurt us, man. It's all going to be about turnout. It's going to be about turnout in the midterms, and And stuff like this, crisis like this, gin up the Democrats. That's exactly, having martyrs is a great thing for them, right? They can go out there, they can say, oh my God, look, Trump is now killing us, for Christ's sakes. What are you going to do? You got to go out and vote. We got to take control of the House again. We got to take control of the Senate again. Otherwise, this guy's just going to kill us all. That's what they're saying out there. Okay.
Quality Leering Center. Quality
Leering Center, right? Yeah, that's what we want. Quality Leering Center. Yeah, quality Leering. Hey, I gotta find myself. They got to be out there, man. They got to be some Quality Leering Center caps or something out there, right?
Or they have shirts.
Huh?
Yeah, they have shirts with that label. I wanted to ask you guys a loaded question.
I want to get a cap. I'm a cap guy. I want to get a Quality Leering Center cap.
Are Republican voters, what you just outlined, Raul, which is sobering and too many times true, it is turnout. Never mind the blue states where we're maybe outnumbered, but are Republican voters in general that fucking stupid that they're going to be a little upset by what happened and they're going to put the Democrats in power? Are they that fucking stupid? I wonder.
I don't think they're going to go out and vote against Trump, but I think some people might stay home.
That's me, in my book. I'm in a harsh mood tonight. That's fucking stupid. Oh, I'm going to teach that Trump a lesson. Trump's not on the ballot, but he is. That's the problem. Trump is not on the ballot. The GOP's on the ballot.
But that is why, things, it's happened historically over and over again. Midterms usually favor the party that is not in power, because the party that's in power is fat, dumb, and happy, and they're satisfied with what's going on, and they're not really motivated to, take the time out to go and vote in a midterm election for a couple of representatives or senators. But the other side is angry because they've lost the reins of power. Okay, they're getting, and especially now, they're getting raked over the coal. Their money's being attacked. They're these huge sources of money. Think about, my God, man, think about all the bureaucrats that have been laid off in Washington, D.C. Okay?
That's the Virginia election. That was November. That was Virginia, November.
Those guys are anxious to go to the polls and vote, and you saw it in Virginia now. Virginia is a bellwether. Virginia voted Democrats. And what are they doing now in Virginia? They're passing all this crazy shit that, Democrats are in favor of, right?
They are screwed royally.
You get psychotic voters. You're going to vote psychotically.
Right.
They voted for an attorney general who wanted to kill an opponent's babies.
Yeah. But again, that's Trump. Unfortunately, that's the Trump effect. I'm sorry, but it's the sins of the father. You guys know the ad is this from. I think it's biblical, right? The sins of the father. And unfortunately, it's the sins of POTUS. And when I see a milquetoast guy like Mike Johnson, where the fuck is Mike Johnson? Where's the Republican leadership? Where's the RNC? Where's the RNC that so brilliantly ran the 24 election? They're nowhere to be.
Look, like if you put a gun to my head right now and told me who's the head of the RNC, I have no fucking idea. Huh?
Exactly.
I have no idea. Where are they? I think the RNC is irrelevant because the RNC is now MAGA, and it's all about, it's all about what happens in Mar-a-Lago. That's all,
Well, MAGA is nationwide. Those caps didn't just sell in Palm Beach. I know. But if you so value that movement, you need to protect it. Speaking only for myself, thank God I'm at a point in life, financially, socially, that I don't have to worry about whatever happens in the midterms are going to affect my quality of life. But I caution all you younger voters, all you working voters, all of you who have families, all of you who have bills, think about what's coming in November and get your ass out and vote. Because if you don't, it's going to be too late. If they win the House and they win the Senate, the whole thing is screwed.
Well,
somebody say something.
Yeah, I got a call coming in. I just got to.
No, I thought you kind of capped it off for a good ending speech.
All right. Yeah. Sorry, my friends, our audience. Sorry to end on a dour note, but the last few days have been tough, and we can only pray that they get better, and that our party understands what GOTV means, and it ain't a TV station. It means get out to vote. We have got to get out to vote. So, any parting thoughts from either of you guys before we end off tonight?
Nothing, man. I just hope that look, people getting killed on the streets is not a good thing. Trump is I think, doing the right thing to sort of dial down the temperature. I think that's the right move.
Take away the distraction.
Yeah, nobody wants to see people getting killed like this. I don't think and anybody in law enforcement wants to see that either. But it's what happens when people start going crazy and making poor decisions and putting cops, who at the end of the day are human and have all sorts of foul, they make mistakes just like the rest of us.
Well said, Marcus. Anything?
Totally irrelevant to everything else, but in 3 days my fast will be over, and I have a newfound ability and a newfound appreciation for eating good food. It's motivating me to cook. My mom passed away over a decade ago, so I'm looking at recipes. So I'm gonna cook a lot and just savor. It's like, I smell my girlfriend's food, so I'm just living vicariously olfactory wise.
Right.
I get that dog, that Pavlovian response. I start to salivate. So
I think in the next episode there'll be an image of like Marcus, like who was that guy? A fat bastard.
or in like Death Becomes Her, where she's eating like a big tub of ice cream.
Yeah, you're gonna be there like Marcus.
Lord-ass and Stand By Me.
Marcus on day 5 out of a 30-day post 30-day fast.
Yeah,
gorging on food.
All right. Well, listen. If you to our viewers, like and subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and let's hope that the next installment we have some good news to report. To all of you, I bid you good night.
Good night, guys.